A.
A thick cloud cover today with a high of 33. Tonight, partly cloudy, low 19. Sunshine tomorrow, high 33. Clear and very cold tomorrow night, low 14. Wednesday, sunny, very cold, high 23. I'm Brian May on AM 560. The Answer.
It is 25 at O'Hare. Next news 7:30, and Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560. The Answer.
Find holiday gift ideas for you and the family at the leading indoor shooting range, Shoot Point Blank. Check out great savings on ammo, accessories, firearms, and more. Not sure what to get? Shoot Point Blank offers gift cards too. See shootpointblank.com for details.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Ding, 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 ding. Bum, 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 bum. Good morning, Amy Jacobson here. Bruce Wolf in for Dan Proft. Hi. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
No, I'm glad you're back. You were here, and then you left me, and now you're back.
It's good to be back.
Yeah, and always a busy week. The House Judiciary just released their 658-page report on impeachment. Bruce, have you had the chance to read it yet?
Give it to me in like a tweet thread. I'll read up to 3 tweets about it.
And that's it?
Yeah.
You're a 3-tweet guy. Yeah, it's not an easy read, but we all know what it's going to say. That is for sure, because it's the same thing that we've been expecting. But now that this is going to go to a House vote on Wednesday, and then, of course, once the holidays are over, the Senate is going to be, essentially, each Senate member is going to be a juror to listen to it. But the Democrats are already saying, no, the jury is clearly tainted.
Everything I do during this, I'm coordinating with White House counsel.
Mitch McConnell, now Lindsey Graham.
I am trying to give a pretty clear signal. I have made up my mind. I'm not
I
trying
wasn't
to
in any
pretend
doubt
to be
at this
a
point.
fair juror here.
I want to end it. I don't want to legitimize it. I hate what they're doing.
And just to have a little balance right here, as Byron York tweeted over the weekend, in the 1998 impeachment of President Clinton, Tom Daschle, the Senate Majority Leader, did consult with Mr. Podesta, who talked to Clinton, who gave his reflections and observations.
Right,
there was no coordination whatsoever.
Well, Jerry Nadler on this week said, no, we can't do this. This is wrong. This is bias.
The Constitution prescribes a special oath for the senators when they sit as a trial in impeachment. They have to pledge to do impartial justice. And here you have the majority leader of the Senate, in effect the foreman of the jury, saying he's going to work hand in glove with the defense attorney. Now, that's a violation of the oath that they're about to take, and it's a complete subversion of the constitutional scheme.
Thank you, Jabba the Nadler.
Well, yeah.
He actually looks like he's slimmed down since 98.
Well, no, he had surgery. He was close to 400
follow.
pounds. He got the ban, and we're just hoping that he doesn't do
Otherwise, he'd actually have
Chris Christie eat through his ban surgery.
Otherwise, he'd actually have to represent 2 districts. He'd have 2 seats in the House.
With more on this, and then James Comey's, I'm sorry I was wrong. Let's welcome back to the program Lieutenant Colonel James Carafano, Vice President of the Catherine and Shelby Cullum Davis Institute for International Studies at the Heritage Foundation, and author of Wiki at War, Conflict in a Socially Networked World and Private Sector Public Wars, Contracts and Combat. Do you think he fits that all on one business card? Good morning, Lieutenant Colonel. How are you?
Good to be with you. It is a very large business card.
It is. I'm like, I almost ran out of
like
breath.
A blanket.
All right, so what are you, nothing to see here, really, when the House Judiciary Committee voted down for 2 articles of impeachment, but one was obstruction of Congress and not the money spot, which is bribery.
Yeah, the interesting one about the obstruction of Congress is that's based on White House and government officials failing to appeal to subpoenas, and I think the Supreme Court just put a stay on that, and they're reviewing that. So that's even what the House did is constitutionally questionable. So that kind of puts that particular article in jeopardy as even being credible.
Yeah, that's kind of the weak tea. That's the throw-in, because if they went through the process, they could have the courts determine whether these people have to testify, but they're in such a hurry because they want to protect the country. I understand that. But it is interesting, the strategy that they're revealing right now in the Senate, and Trump is actually trapping himself, it sounds like, because he says he wants a long trial. I think they want to have it decided at halftime of the Super Bowl, just for maximum exposure. But it seems like Schumer is saying now, well, we want to call Bolton during the actual Senate trial. And that's the last thing that the president wants, right?
Right. Well, the actual dream team that they want to testify, Mick Mulvaney, John Bolton, as you mentioned, Robert Blair, and Michael Duffy.
Right. So I think there's two things that are interesting here. And you know, I'm not a political guy. I just look at the policy and why I'm concerned about it, I do foreign policy is because, well, this impacts upon the president and the Congress doing business. So one issue which is really important, I think, is the notion about the White House has always had, in a sense, the cone of silence around it, that their internal deliberations aren't free and open to the Congress, because if they were, literally Congress could be calling people over every single day and questioning every single thing the president did. And if you had a Congress in opposition, essentially, they could prevent the White House from doing virtually anything. And so this notion about, granted, that code of silence does not include criminal activity. That's not protected by anybody if it's done in the Congress, the White House, or in the courts. But essentially what's trying to be done here is to lower the bar that essentially says we should have free and open access to everything that's discussed inside the White House just because we want it. That's a dicey principle, and I think that's something that the courts are going to weigh in on.
It's ironic because Congress has relinquished so much authority to the White House, to the administrative state, but now all of a sudden in this particular situation, and they certainly didn't want to scrutinize the Obama White House about any of this stuff, but now this is a special situation.
I mean, and this is, I think, something, essentially in the Obama administration, it was almost run like a parliamentary democracy. In a sense, the president acted like the head of the party, and everybody in Congress just did what he said. But we're not a parliamentary democracy. And this notion about the executive power having power that's independent of the Congress, even if the Congress is controlled by the other party completely, right? Even in impeachment, for example, he said, well, we could just throw the president out, but you have to have a 2/3 majority in the Senate to do that. We are not a parliamentary democracy. And in a sense, I think part of the criticism of the administration, in a sense, is they kind of want it to run that way, even though the opposition only controls one house of the Congress. So there's something bigger at play here than just everybody hates the president. I mean, they want to govern the country differently. But I think the other thing of interest here is if you're just kind of following the narrative, like I am, because I'm not a lawyer, and this isn't my issue, is clearly the other side, the president's critics, recognize that they're not going to remove him from office. And so now they've shifted to a strategy of essentially impeaching the process of impeachment.
That's good. All right. So now, do you think impeachment, though, will become the new normal now? I mean, next time we have a Democrat in the White House and we thought bad that we should have won that election, are we going to try and impeach them? Him or her?
Nobody's ever really successfully used this to shape the political process. I mean, when it was done against Clinton, it actually didn't work at all. I mean, Republicans lost, seats. So I think, part of the rest of the story will be is, what kind of political lessons will people take from this? The other thing I think it's true is the actual structure of the system itself is built to be pretty resilient to the political process. Essentially, you could only do this if you controlled. I mean, other than if there was a bipartisan support in the process, which is, I think, kind of why Richard Nixon resigned, because I think he saw that there was bipartisan support for acknowledgement that he had committed essentially was a criminal activity and that it was constitutionally valid to remove him. So he was in great jeopardy, which is, I think, why he stepped down. But absent that, just as a political process, you have to control not just the House, but you have to control 2/3 of the Senate. It's pretty hard to envision a political process where somebody would control the House and 2/3 of the Senate and actually not be controlling the White House. So
exactly.
It's a pretty substantial check and balance against just playing politics with this. And you think that people would have figured it out before they walked down that road.
Right. Schumer is trying to distinguish 1998 from now, and he's saying, well, Clinton, it was a personal peccadillo. It's like when Pete Rose gambled on baseball. That was the crime against baseball. You wouldn't keep Pete Rose out of the Hall of Fame because he cheated on his wife. But the problem is that Clinton actually committed a crime. And Trump isn't even accused of committing a crime here. So, I mean, doesn't that kind of vitiate the impact of what Schumer is arguing?
Well, I'm sympathetic to Schumer's defense of Clinton in the sense that it was a high crime or misdemeanor, high crime or high misdeed. That what Clinton did was obviously a crime, but it did really impede in how he was governing the country. And I think you can make it, which I think was made in the Senate, and which is why they voted the way they did. That didn't really rise to the level of impeachment. I got that. The challenge here, of course, is it seems fairly apparent. Again, I'm not a constitutional lawyer. It's just my personal view that what they have come up with is nothing. They have no evidence. They have a theory of a high crime or misdemeanor being committed, but they actually haven't produced evidence which proves that.
Well, if they could get an expedited procedure through the courts.
I love when you talk legalese.
Well, and whether we have to fast track this case. I know the court has to hear a personal injury case.
Exactly.
But they could determine whether Mulvaney and Bolton and others could testify, and then we could, save the republic.
Well, I think the first question you would ask is, would they materially bring anything to the case that we don't have already? I mean, we have lots of people who are directly involved with this process who have already testified.
Yeah.
And so the question is there's a presumption there that they have information that other people don't have.
Yeah. Lieutenant Colonel,
I'm not sure what that presumption is based on, because we actually haven't seen anything in the evidence that's been presented or in the testimony that's been presented that suggested that they've got some secret hidden knowledge that we haven't heard yet.
Well,
again, I'm not a lawyer, but I did watch Knives Out last night in the movie, so I feel pretty good at detecting.
You also could be a member of the jury because we ask people to use their common sense. So I will not use my peremptory challenge, and I will put you on the jury right now, and you have decided that he's not guilty, so let's move on to something else.
James Comey, I'm sure you watched the interview on Fox. He admitted he was wrong, overconfident. President Trump says he should go to jail.
Yeah, he's right. I was wrong. I was overconfident in the procedures that the FBI and Justice had built over 20 years. I thought they were robust enough. It's incredibly hard to get a FISA. I was overconfident in those because he's right. There was real sloppiness. 17 things that either should have been in the applications or at least discussed and characterized differently. It was not acceptable. And so he's right. I was wrong.
But you make it sound like you're a bystander, an eyewitness. You were the director of the FBI while a lot of this was going on, sir.
Sure. I'm responsible for that. That's why I'm telling you I was wrong. I was overconfident as director in our procedures. And it's important.
And he went on to say, too, that it's very difficult to get a FISA warrant, and it's really not that hard to get a FISA warrant, is it?
Well, here's the deal. They approve about 90% of the warrants, but that's because they're so meticulously well prepared. and that's kind of the standard. And it is predicated on essentially the FBI not lying in their application. I mean, there's a presumption that the FBI is actually presenting factual evidence, which
and now it's
in the long
evidence,
in the long history we know of FISA, I've been one of the greatest defenders of FISA. I mean, we have to have a FISA court. We simply cannot not have the capacity to deal with classified evidence and pursue criminal cases. I mean, that's just ridiculous. We have to have that.
Sir, you have just slandered James Comey by saying that he signed on several times on a FISA warrant which included lies. You don't know that they're lies. You don't know that it was intentional, even though it was either intentional or grossly negligent, and there's not that great a distinction between the two.
Here's what's just shocking to me is this is probably the most sensitive and important case that the FBI has pursued in modern history. I mean, you're investigating a candidate during a presidential campaign, and that represents some of your most slipshod work. I mean, that to me is just
doesn't
stunning.
pass the smell test. It's like, he was busy nailing some crooks for bootlegging, and he was too busy and just willy-nilly signed this FISA warrant. Like he didn't read over every single thing, and it never dawned on him to ask about whether the Steele dossier had been corroborated. What a crock!
Well, I have no idea but as the guy responsible, I think it's a completely inadequate explanation. Now,
right.
And here's the thing: is it's not just that's the root of 3 years of incredible partisan attacks on the president,
just
which
trying
is
to
bad
overturn
enough.
the election.
But you have jeopardized. You put in because now there are people saying let's get rid of the FISA court. You put in jeopardy one of the most vital national security instruments that we have. That to me, that's kind of a big deal.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there for today. Lieutenant Colonel James Carafano, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, guys. See you next week.
Okay, thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Hallelujah! Holy
On AM 560.
Where's the Tylenol?
The Answer.
Balance of nature. Changing the world, one life at a time.
The testimonial sounded pretty good, so I tried you out, and I'm actually feeling a lot better. My legs usually hurt all the time, and they do not hurt all the time anymore. That's only after 3 weeks.
I haven't had a cold. I haven't had the flu in 5 years. My energy is boundless. I feel great, and if I'm tired, it's because I earned it. I can't say enough for this product. It's a godsend.
Experience the Balance of Nature difference for yourself. Call or go online now and become a preferred customer, which gives you our best pricing and free shipping. And we will take an additional 25% off of your first order. Plus, get a set of convenient travel bottles containing a free additional week's supply of Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies. Call 800-2468-751 or go to balanceofnature.com and use discount code Chicago.
Do you own or run a thriving business in the Chicagoland area? Have you overcome obstacles to make your business what it is today? If that's your business, then AM 560 The Answer wants to tell your story on the AM 560 Business Tour 2020, presented by Signature Bank. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson.